Hello, Kelly here with Kelly's Scorpio Life, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the herb mullein. And this is an herb that I hadn't really worked a lot with. I'd heard of it, I've been doing some studies in herbalism, and it's one that's definitely come up in my studies, but I've never really studied it in depth. And it does have a very magical history as well. And so that is one of the things that I've been doing for the months of this year is taking four magical things and really going in depth with them. So each month I study a crystal, an herb, a deck, and a book. And so in November, I've been studying the crystal Lapis Lazuli, and you'll see that video and a link to the PDF in the Cauldron. And I'll have all of this information also in the description box. And I've also been using two decks, the Mystic, Augur, and Sage Oracle, and the Flight of the Butterfly Tarot by Kelly Burton. And I'm using these two together, and I've not used two decks together so far this year, but the tarot deck came out and I really wanted to use it, and the Oracle deck came out along with it. And the Oracle deck has something really fun that goes along with it. It's a little extra technique that you can use using the Oracle deck. So I've been using the Oracle deck and the way that it's set up along with the tarot deck this month. And it's been really fun. And towards the end of the month, I'll have a more detailed video on that for you, so you can follow along and find out all about those two decks. And the book that I'm reading is actually two books for November and December, and it's Goddess Alive and Goddess Afoot by Michelle Sky. And so I'm doing both of those. They're very much involved with goddesses and the using them during different times of the year and practices that you can use with them. And so it's been really fun for these 2 months to go to hear the stories and to see them written in a different way by a different author and her perspective and the practices that she has in the book. And so I'll have kind of a little report as for where I am in the books towards the end of this month. And then at the end of December, I'll have one for both books together. And I think there's actually a third book that goes along with it, but I don't have that one. So I'm just doing these two books together. So that is my November. And like I said, this month, I've been working with the herb mullein. And this is it's a very interesting plant. It's very hardy, and it just, if you see it growing, you can see it growing in these just tall spikes of yellow flowers. And it's got, this just bunches of green, silvery, like soft leaves at the bottom. And you can see it growing in lots of different places. It's very adaptable. It's very hardy. And I think that that is, one, as I've been studying herbs more and studying herbalism, that's one of the things that it kind of is a hallmark of a lot of medicinal plants, is that they're very hardy, they're very adaptable, so that they go with us and they're there with us when we need it, because they are very great plants and they do things for us. They help us in different ways, and we connect to them spiritually, and we can connect to them in a healing way. And so that it's been really wonderful to connect with these different plant spirits all through this year. And you'll see all the ones, I have videos for all the ones that I have done, or some of the ones that I have done, because I kind of started later in this year making the recordings, but you'll find all of them, and you can just poke around my channel and you can find the ones that I've done. And there's also PDFs for all the ones that I've done, so that you can explore this herb on your own. So mullein, again, it's very beautiful, it's very adaptable. It's one of those just kind of probably most people would think of it as a weed, but it has such wonderful properties, both magically and spiritually, and as as a healing plant. So it was used once upon a time as a torch. People would take because it has these tall stalks on it, and you can see this is from the Herb Crafters Tarot, and this is her drawing of the mullein plant. And here you can see the tall, it's tall and spiky, and people then would dip the tall spikes in tallow and burn them as torches. So it was a way to ward off the darkness, to use when it was dark, and to see. And that's I think a very important part of one of the things that I got out of working with mullein this month, is that it is something that really helps you see in the dark, and it helps you expand and open up, because physically it's been used for respiratory support, to open up the lungs when you have a cough or a cold, just to kind of help you breathe easier. And so you can find a lot of, if you make a mullein tea, you can definitely use that. And I think it's great too that I'm studying it. I kind of picked these at the end of last year. And so I really didn't know how a lot of these would be adaptable for the season that we're in. And they are. And just magically they've come up, and I've learned something that's really been helpful for the time that I'm in. And that again is one of the great things about magic, is things come to you when you need it. And so this is and mullein was often used as protection, ironically enough, against evil spirits, including witches. And so it was something that people would say when witches, well, I think when witches were considered to be evil spirits, they were along with all the evil spirits, just like fairies and elves and other things that beings that people were fearful of a long time ago. And now we realize that a lot of that was fears, fears of not having enough, or fears of death, and fears of things running out, and fears of the dark, because the dark months were hard times. And so it was a way to deal with those kind of feelings, and getting through those dark months, just like we're going into the dark months right now. And most of us really don't fear not having enough, and starving to death, like our ancestors would have been fearful of. But we have different things that we are fearful of these days, and different things that we are dealing with going into the dark months, when a lot of us have a hard time with just with the darkness, dealing something with a traumatic event, something that is a shadow part of us that we want to work with, or is very painful to work with, or whatever it is that you may be working with going into this time of year. And so it is a way to do that. It's anxiety that we feel, because that can feel very dark. You feel, it makes your brain feel like that you're going to die, that something terrible is going to happen. And so it's the same kind of thing, but even though it's not something physically that you may be encountering, but it is something mentally. And so mullein can be a support for when you're having those feelings, when you're facing something that is a darkness to you. And I have some magic here that we'll talk about, and I'll do a little magic spell for you that you can adapt for yourself when you're facing that darkness. And it might be this dark time of year, it might be something physically that you're going through, maybe something physically that you're suffering from, and it might be a traumatic event, it might be grief that you're going through. So this mullein is really helpful for that. And herbally, it's really good for this time of year because it is a time, if you're in, the colder parts of the world right now, then it can be something that that can help open you up. You can make a mullein tea. You can make, use it to just kind of, when you're not feeling well, just when you need some support. And there are lots of, I found a tea and this is from a website called Star West Botanicals, and they sell a lot of herbs. And so this is a tea for wellness that they have, that you mix mullein, rose, ginger, all dried mullein, dried rose petals, dried ginger root, some dried tulsi or holy basil, some cinnamon sticks, and some dried cinnamon, and some dried nettle with some licorice root and lavender. And so you can mix, and it's a really good tea because it has all these just really beautiful herbs in it. And all of these herbs kind of work together to give you that kind of oomph that you might need during this time of year for whatever reason. So mullein is a great one as an herb on its own, and to mix with other herbs that you can use just for general, health. Or if you want to use it for cough or a cold, or just to kind of help you breathe easier. You can even, one thing that I really like to do is put some dried herbs and put it in some boiling water and just have it in a cup or in a bowl and just breathe it in. And it's great to breathe in. Now, with anything that you use and that you are not sure of, or that you haven't used before, and if you have any kind of allergies or any sensitivities or anything like that, do be very, very careful with the things that you use, and make sure that you test them out, make sure that you read about them, that you find out more about them, and so that you are safe. And that's, goes with anything that you use, herbs, essential oils, scents, anything, foods that you eat, anything that you use, and that you are exposed to. Make sure that you keep yourself very safe, because there's lots of ways, just like this tarot card that I have with the mullein on it. You can use this if you're not ready to use, or you don't have access to dried herbs. You can use this, use a card. There's lots of pictures on the internet. So there's lots of ways that you can use the energy of the whatever it is, the energy of an herb. And I did that for a long time. I used herbs in a very energetic way. I used pictures, I used tarot cards, I used oracle cards. And then when I, started studying herbalism and started, really using, because I knew that there were lots of herbs. I've always been fascinated with herbs and spices, and have always, had a kitchen full of oregano and basil and cinnamon and nutmeg and clove. And so I've always used those kinds of herbs. And so I just kind of stepped out a little bit and started saying, okay, well, what are some that are ones that I know that people have been using for for a long time? And just like lavender, starting to use lavender. And so I bought lavender, some dry lavender, and started using it just in spells, and using it as, and just putting it in just a little pot or a bag. And so I would use the lavender and just have the smell. And so then I started using it more as a tea. And so then I just slowly moved into those things. And now that I've studied more and more, and started doing some actual herbalism certification work, then I've gotten a little bit deeper into herbal medicine. And so you can decide for yourself what works for you. But mullein, I think, would be a good one to work with, a good one to start working with, and just making a tea. And you don't have to drink it, just make a tea. You can put it out on your altar. You can, like I said, breathe it in. You can just have it out, and you don't have to do anything that you feel unsafe. So I always want to say that because it is, everybody's different, and everybody has things that appeal to them, and just like lavender, some people love the smell of lavender and some people are very turned off with lavender. And cilantro is another one, because I've used, I use a lot of herbs and spices, and cilantro is one that I personally love. Cilantro, and I put it, and I'm making something like in a tomato sauce or something, a salsa, then I will put the cilantro in it. But I don't do it for the rest of my family, because I know that one of my sons, I think, likes it, but the other, my other two kids and my husband doesn't really like it. So, it's one of those things that you have to just be very careful with, and just, take it one step at a time for yourself, because everybody's different and we all have our own tastes, our own sensitivities. And some people do, of course, have, very severe sensitivities and allergies to things. And so you want to always just be very, very careful, and know that magically you can use you can use things and use substitutions, and it's great because it's coming from you and it's coming from your intention. So now that we've talked about that, oh, and one of the things that I read in one of the herbal books, and I'll put the sources where I got a lot of my information from. And one of the books said that herb you can use dried mullein leaves for as a substitute for graveyard dirt in spells and rituals. And I thought that was very interesting, because you can use, because a lot of times we have these spells and rituals that we might want to do, and it calls for something like graveyard dirt, or a railroad tie, or something iron, or something that you just don't, that doesn't grow around you, and that doesn't, is not accessible. And mullein might be something that is accessible to you, but a graveyard might not be. So those kinds of things you can use as substitution. But I thought that was really interesting, because if you do, in graveyard dirt, to me, is something that is not, that I don't particularly use lightly. It's something that I have very much respect for, and I have used it a few times for very specific things. And so this would be a good thing if you wanted to use something, a spell or a ritual or a magical practice, and it called for graveyard dirt. And so you thought, well, what would be something good as a substitution? And this would be a good substitute. And, you'll probably find, as you work with mullein or work with other herbs, that they'll be good for different times of the year, different times of, different moon cycles, different things like that. And so mullein is a great one to use, I think, for this time of year, because it is getting dark and we can use it. It's got that kind of torch symbolism. And so using it for the darkness, but it's also something that is very much associated with Walpurgis night. And Walpurgis night is kind of like Beltane or Beltane in the Celtic traditions in the spring. It's April 30th, and there's lots of bonfires and celebrations around. And I think it honored a person named Walpurga. I just kind of briefly, when I found this, I just kind of briefly went on that rabbit hole, and I didn't want to get too down into that rabbit hole, because I did make a note that I want to come back to this in the spring when it is Walpurgis night, and really go into it, because I have found out that I do have German ancestors, and Walpurgis night is the more German Norse Scandinavian, I think, a time or celebration. And so I wanted to go back and make sure that, you know, I had my facts straight and I really and found out more about it. So that in the spring, I have, you know, Mullein will probably do a little repeat back then, and I'll talk more about that. But I just thought that was very interesting that it has that association, you know, this time of year warding off evil, and also in the spring, you know, after you've kind of come through the darkness and you're ready to celebrate and things are starting to grow again. And so this would be a, you know, a great herb to work with again in the spring. And so I'm really looking forward to that and to digging into that a little bit more. But I thought I would mention it here because I thought it was really interesting and something that I might come back to later on. So stay tuned, and in the spring might come back to it. So that's about it about, you know, what I found personally interesting about mullein and ways that you can use it. And I always want to do something magical with the herb, the crystal, the herb that I'm working with. And I think I'm, because I like to use tarot in magical workings as well. I'm going to add that as well, and add something magical, some kind of magical spell when I do the deck. But today I wanted to do something because it's still in that darkening time, and we still have, you know, a few more weeks until it is Yule, and a few more weeks until the winter solstice, when the days start to get longer again. But you know, it's still a lot of dark, you know, it's still a lot of time of darkness, and we're going into, in the northern hemisphere, we're going into winter, and going into that time when it is, well, here, you know, it's kind of dreary and dark and cold, and other places it's, you know, a lot colder and snowier and things like that. So we're going into that time of winter, and you know, wanting to have that kind of light in the darkness. And so this is a Make Magical Mullein torch, and so I'm going to show you how you can make your own mullein torch, even if you don't have, you know, a mullein plant that you can dip in tallow and make your own torch. You can use a candle, and you can use dried mullein if you have it. If you don't, you can just use whatever oil that you have, and you know, just have and just call in the spirit of mullein. And you know, I know the spirit of mullein will come and, you know, walk with you. And because I feel like this is a very, you know, adaptable and welcoming plant that would be happy to work with you. And so what I did was I infused some, and this is jojoba oil, with some dried mullein, and you can see it kind of in there. And I just took this. Normally, if I were making like an infusion, I would take some oil, take some fresh herbs, and have just a little mini crock pot, and plug it in, and put the oil with the dry, or with the fresh herbs, and put that in there, and just let it warm for several hours, and then I strain it out, and I just store it in usually a glass bottle like this, because this is, you know, this is I usually use kind of these glass bottles like this, and this is some fresh violet infused oil that I made this spring when we had violets growing in the yard. But you can do this and do kind of a quickie method, and this is good, you know, when you want, you know, when you want to make do this spell, and you want something that's you're facing something that's dark, you're facing something that is causing you anxiety, or you're facing this time of year and it's really hard, you're facing the holidays and you want some support, you want something just to put that intention in, that I'm going to see what I need to see in this time of the darkness, and it's going to, you know, just give you that light, that the brightness that you need to see whatever you need to see. And so you can make it very personal very personal to you. So I've just done this kind of in a quickie method. So I put this in, just put the it's jojoba oil and dried mullein together, and I just warmed it up briefly. You can do this different ways. You can put a little pot on the stove. If you have an essential oil warmer burner, you can put it on the top with a candle underneath. You can put it in the microwave, which is what I did. And I know that's not very magical, but I wanted to do something and have it and to have it warmed just slightly. And so I put that in there this morning. So I have my infused oil here, and I've left, normally if I were going to use the oil for something long term, like this violet oil that I've been using for this year, then I would strain it out and put it in something where I can preserve it. And this one here, I put just a small amount in a bottle that I can keep here next to my desk, and I put the rest of it in the refrigerator, and so it keeps for a longer time. And so I know that this will this here will keep for just a little while, and then I need to just check it and make sure that it's okay. And so I do that, occasionally I check it, make sure that it's not, it's not gone bad. And when we do that, I just return it to the earth. And I tried to always use something that is friendly. Like if you have olive oil or avocado oil or, any kind of oil that you like to use, you can use that and know that it's okay for the environment, and know that it's biodegradable, and that you can use it. So coconut oil, anything that you want to use that you feel good about using. And this jojoba oil is something that I like to use, because then I just put it, I can just rub it into my hands, and it makes my skin feel really good. So again, that's what I've done. I've infused the oil with the dried mullein. And then I'm going to dress a taper candle with the oil. Now this one, I'm just using a very small one here, because this is what I had, and this color is what I had. And I want it to burn down fairly quickly. Now, if you wanted to use this for something that you could come back to, or that you wanted a kind of a longer spell time for it, use a bigger, longer taper candle. And it's really good for that, because then you can just dress the candle just like this. So I'm just dipping my finger into this infused oil and just covering the candle like this. So then I'm going to put the candle in my candle holder. And then I'm going to light the candle. And as I light the candle, and I have this all in the PDF for you. When in darkness, I need to see what is in front of me. I ask mullein to shine bright and guide me to what is right. So may it be. And then as your candle burns and that torch is lit, then you can see what is in the darkness. And allow your candle to burn down in order to reveal what needs to be seen. And again, if you don't want to burn a candle, or you're not in a place where you can burn a candle, you can use an electric candle, do the same thing, just maybe anoint your hands with it. You can just put the electric candle with a picture of the mullein, put it together. You can use some dried herbs and maybe put the electric candle and put some dried herbs around it, and light your candle, let it stay on for however long you think it needs to stay on. Very different ways. You could also, there's lots of those on the internet, and on especially on YouTube, where you can see a video of a candle. You could do that, and do hold a crystal in your hand that you've infused with the spirit of mullein, or hold a tarot card in your hand and watch the video and just kind of close your eyes and say and say your intention. And then when you open your eyes and you see that burning candle on the screen, then that and ask for the spirit of Mullein to be with you. So there's lots of ways that you can adapt this. So if you don't have, I'm kind of giving you the things that I did. And again, I used what I had. I enjoy using candles and burning things because I have a lot of fire in my chart, in my astrology chart. So burning things is something that is very magical to me, and it might not be to you, and figure out the thing, what works for you. And so you might have incense that you like to use, but it's all very adaptable, and it's all very very adaptable. And that's the great thing about magic. And just like Mullein, it's very adaptable, it's very hardy. And as witches, we can be adaptable, and we can be hardy, and we can be, we can make the best of the situation, and we can see the darkness that is there and know that we need that darkness, because we do need the darkness. But we can also see what we need to see. What is it that we need to get out of this darkness? What is it that we need to see from, what is it, if you're feeling anxious about something, why are you feeling anxious about it? So you can really get deeper into that, and it can let you see, what is it that you're feeling anxious about? And that can help, go a long way when you identify it, is working with that anxiety. And it might not go away, and you might still feel anxious about it, but just knowing what it is and knowing what the root is goes a long way to helping you through that darkness. And that, I think, is how Mullein can help you with that as well. It can be something that can support you. And if you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling like you're facing something dark, or you're facing something that's in grief, then Mullein, you can call in the spirit of Mullein. You can drink some Mullein tea. You can have the herb on your altar. Just lots of different ways. You can make your own oracle card with it. So there's so many ways, and so many ways to be adaptable and to make your own magic, because the most important thing is you and your intention. What is your intention? My intention is to see, and my intention here is, I know that going into the dark and going into the winter is not my favorite time of year, and I have a really hard time getting through the darkness and the cold. And so I look for this to reveal ways that I can face this time, and face it in a good way, and face it in a way that's going to help me get the most out of this time, and to see what it is that is in the darkness, and the time, a time of rest, and a time of going inward, and really doing that for myself. So that is my intention, and you can use it. And I would love to hear if you do this magic spell for yourself, or what your intention is something that you're facing in the dark, that Mullein, you think, can be supportive to you. And you can leave me a comment. And so again, thank you for joining me in this talk about Mullein. And again, I'll leave everything, all the descriptions, the books, and everything down in the description box, so that you can find these things for yourself. You can do this magic for yourself. And make sure, I will be doing 2 more videos this month at least. And I am working on the next Lenormand class. So class 4 will be coming out before the end of the month. So I have at least 3 more things. I have the deck study that's coming out with the butterfly deck and the oracle deck. And then I'll have a book study report for you. And the next Lenormand class is going to be coming out. So make sure that you subscribe, so that you get a notification when the next video comes out. And if you can, give me a like. I would love that. And because I love to know that you're here, and that you're listening, and that you're getting something magical out of this as well. And because I love sharing this magic. So I hope that you have a good rest of your day, whatever you are doing as you're watching this. And I will see you again in the next video. Bye.